Welcome to the OLV Daily Reflection for Wednesday, February 9th. The Gospel reading for today's daily Mass comes to us from the 7th chapter of St. Mark's Gospel. It reads, Jesus summoned the crowd again and said to them, "Hear me, all of you, and understand. Nothing that enters one from the outside can defile that person, but the things that come from within are what defile." When he got home away from the crowd, his disciples questioned him about the parable. He said to them, "Are you even likewise without understanding? Do you not realize that everything that goes into a person from the outside cannot defile, since it enters not the heart but the stomach, and passes out into the latrine?" Thus he declared all foods clean. But what comes out of the man, that is what defiles him. From within the man, from his heart, comes evil thoughts, unchastity, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, licentiousness, envy, blasphemy, arrogance, folly. All these evils come from within, and they defile. The direct response of Jesus Christ in today's gospel is truly convicting, because all of us, especially since many of us are very self-reflective, we can understand how personal thoughts, feelings, and desires can cause us to sin. And yes, we might try extremely hard in our lives to make sure that everything we do in our lives and everything around us keeps us from sinning. But our hearts and minds still can go to dark and sinful places that lead to actions described by Jesus in today's gospel passage. And brothers and sisters, this is the result of concupiscence. We are redeemed by Jesus Christ from the original sin, but the effects of that sin is still with us. And let me provide a real-life example. Religious communities of women and men still have regularly scheduled times for confession, because every person in these communities must account for his or her struggle with sin. And it is true that the communal life of the consecrated religious help them to alleviate the temptation to sin, and also the same life helps them to foster virtuous action. But again, religious sisters and brothers still have hearts and minds that fall in the same way as those of us who live outside of monasteries and convents. As Jesus reminds us, it is what comes from within that defiles us, not the things that are without or outside of us. So this is the struggle of human life. We always have to be responsible for our own individual sins, which means that we have to hold captive our hearts and minds and truly transform how we think and interact with the world so that we don't become more and more sinful, but that by everyday's actions of prayer, fasting, giving, celebration of the sacraments, we purify our lives and we make our thoughts, feelings, and desires truly focus more on Christ and not focused on the things of this world. And this is where our community becomes important, because we do need good people around us to help and support us. If we do not have a good set of people around us to help and support us in living out our virtuous life, living out our prayer life, living out a life focused on Christ, it is going to be more difficult. But also, brothers and sisters, we can't always put the blame on people around us either, because at the end of the day, we each have individual freedom to choose how we respond to what goes on in our hearts and minds. It's always wonderful to have amazing people around us to help us grow to become more like Christ, but again, they are not the excuse either. Each of us have a choice in our own lives, again, how we respond to what we think, what we feel, and what we experience. So the words of today's gospel challenge us, but also hopefully they can give us some empowerment. That if we can work to truly focus on what happens within our lives It doesn't matter what happens outside of our lives. Because again, Christ will give us the grace to truly transform our lives so that we may become more and more like Him and truly have lives that are not defiled by the things of this world. Our Lady of Victory, pray for us.